back again. I've got a PowerPoint to show you. If you need any more inspiration for the discussion board, the forum this week, Art Around You, these are some examples found by past Art 1010 students. So there we go. And thanks to PowerPoint, we should have some subtitles so everyone can read along. This is the idea that I'm going for with Art Around You. Something public like a sculpture, might be in your neighborhood, or like I said, on your way to work, something that you can access, maybe even just walking around your home neighborhood. This is an example from my neighborhood that I can walk to. This particular mural has been taken down though, so note that if you remember something on, such and such street and it's not there anymore, if you ever got a picture of it in the past, you can use a past picture. You are not limited to taking pictures this week, okay? So just make sure that when you take a picture of something, especially if you're in a moving vehicle, don't take pictures while you're driving, come on. You might not be able to get the best picture if you're a passenger. So even though it's safe, you might not be able to get the best view, the best picture. Stop whenever you can and take a look. This is an example of what can happen. It's a lovely photo of a great large mural of Stevie Wonder in Detroit, but it's a little blurry, isn't it? So here's another great example of catching a mural. Parking the car, getting out and framing it a little better and getting a nice clear photo that everyone can see. And we're not limited to just murals and paint and sculptures. It could be a building too, or a monument. Think of Public Square, right? Think of the Carnegie Bridge. Things that are iconic to Cleveland as well. This particular example is from a different country. I'm cheating a little bit. This is mine, but also think of time of day. So think of maybe you take a regular walk. If it's in the afternoon, that's kind of the golden hour for photography. So snap it up with your phone if you see something that you like. And it can be as simple as window details. So don't overthink it, okay? Don't be too hard on yourself. Well, there's another kind of classic Cleveland example off of the shoreway there. Remember, keep it man-made. We want to look at art made by people and art around you. So if you haven't been there, maybe don't use it. So no Google Images. But if you've been there in the past, definitely share us your Instagram post from 2 years ago. And if you have any questions, if you're tempted to do something like this, resist the urge. There'll be plenty of time later to share our own work and the work of our relatives and friends when we talk about painting, like this one, and drawing in part 2. All right. And again, to kind of get the juices flowing. There we go. Just some basic reminders about what we expect in terms of our appreciation, our 1010, what we're going for. We want to keep this class experiential. So even though I teach the art history surveys, it's less about art history and less about learning each and every artist, each and every image, and more about considering why these questions are important, right? So for you, especially if thinking about art around you, well, what is art? Who makes art? Why make it? What is it made of? What does it do? Because the simplest, spray painted image on the side of a building can be art, right? It doesn't have to be something made by some famous person. It doesn't have to be something made by someone who is, in New York or Paris or some famous city. It can be something that maybe matters to you, but isn't famous or doesn't matter to other people necessarily. So art can be personal as well as public, as well as something more society-based. So in terms of who, why, what, and all these other questions. Remember, we're going to see very classic old masters like Rembrandt, but also leave some room for people like Terry Crews, who is, a football player, actor, commercial personality, all around great guy, and an accomplished illustrator on his own. Why make it? We're going to see things made for very political and official purposes, and things made for much more aesthetic and everyday domestic purposes, like this example of stoneware used in the traditional Japanese tea ceremony. The best thing about Art 1010 is I'm not limited to talking about the cultures in the textbook for art history. Art 1010 and Gateways to Art offers something from everywhere. So we have examples of mask-shaped ivory carvings, masks themselves from West Africa, and countries like Cameroon and Nigeria and Congo. We have more contemporary examples and modern examples of sculpture that are more abstract. And we have things that are actually quite challenging, like Ellen Atsui's Old Man's Cloth, which if you look at it from afar, of course, yeah, it's art. It's in a gallery. It's beautiful and shiny and colorful. It's made of aluminum and copper wire. Those are basic materials, you might say. So he made something great out of it. When you look further, when you read about it, those are all the foil tops of liquor bottles. So Old Man's Cloth, not cloth. It's not something necessarily that an elder of his community would wear in Ghana, for example, or here for that matter. It's making a very political, social statement about colonialism. We are in a period, in an era of, you could say, post-colonialism, right? Where sometimes things appear so distant in history. Yet, for Ellen Atsui and for his viewers, he wants the exploitation of communities in African colonies to be first and foremost in your mind, to be just as fresh now as they would have been back before these countries gained their independence from entities like the British Empire. So this particular exploitation is the flooding of the market with liquor, in a way liquoring up the population with these luxury goods, yet useless luxury goods that can't be used to clothe people, can't clothe the poor, feed the poor. In return, European and American companies took expensive, valuable resources, diamonds, gold, silver, copper, aluminum, for use in those countries and not in the places where they were mined and discovered. So art can be very political, hence my statement about Martin Luther King Jr., hence my statement about how we need to be empathetic to each other, keep it evidence-based, know the difference between fact and opinion, especially when dealing with these politically active artists like Ellen Atsui, like Ai Weiwei, who has been incarcerated by the Chinese government several times. So we'll see him again, definitely, in a couple Gateway images, actually. When we have a bit of distance historically from the topic, it might appear a little less controversial, but look at that caption there. This is in the Fitzwilliam Museum of Cambridge University in England. How do you suppose a Egyptian sarcophagus, an inner coffin got to Cambridge, England. Colonialism. So those are, again, you're just being introduced to these issues of the art world here. I don't expect you to solve the art world's problems. I do want you to see them and experience firsthand what the 21st century art world is up against in terms of post-colonialism, in terms of white supremacy and racism, and the ethics and the public place that a museum must deal with, that art galleries must deal with and occupy these days. Because for many of us, art is a very precious, valuable thing monetarily. It's also precious historically. In many cases, like Johannes Vermeer, he didn't paint that many examples like Girl with a Pearl Earring. So it's rare. That's what makes it more valuable than just the money it's worth. It's an expression of one's culture, like the Virgin of Guadalupe in Mexico City. And of course, a nice shot of our Cleveland Museum of Art there with the Thinker, which, if you may know or may not know, was bombed in 1970. We go to museums to find art, but you don't have to go to the museum. You can find it on the internet for your term paper and in your neighborhood for this week's discussion. So remember, it doesn't have to be big and flashy and amazing like Simon Rodia's Watts Towers. Fun fact, Rodia is not, he's not an artist. He was a construction worker. So he's using steel and mortar and concrete, materials that he knows. Art can also be the advertising around us. So if you're still hurting for an example, I don't know, what trucks are going by all the time? Is there art behind the Amazon logo? I don't know. And we'll be able to answer these questions much more readily. I'm getting you warmed up here. By the time we're done with chapter 1.10, by the time you're taking test 1, you will know these elements on the left-hand side and principles. So in future prompts, when I ask for an element or a principle, I'm referring specifically to this list: color, form, line, mass, etc., balance, contrast, emphasis, on and on and on. And these are the topics of chapters 1.1 through 1.9 that we're studying starting next week. So through our gateways, the images that'll keep popping up, some that are very familiar, some that are brand new to you, we will be able to kind of walk through these issues of the art world ethically, through formal analysis, aesthetically, and hopefully you'll leave Art 1010 with a better understanding of how art is made and why. All right? Again, any more questions, email me, get a hold of me on Remind, or sign up for an appointment. Okie doke, that's all I got. And I'll let you loose. We have a few more days before our first deadline. And remember, these are important days. I'm also taking attendance. You're deciding whether to stay in the course or not. So pay attention to our syllabus, pay attention to what your needs are in terms of schedule, and make the decision that's right for you. If you need any help, I'm here.